My wife is a fantastic planner, and I'm usually just along for the ride. Well, this time I'm riding to Pop Century for 5 days, and I couldn't wait, so I sped up the video. After flashing the old Magic Band at the security booth, we pulled into check-in parking and sat in our car. And a couple of minutes later, the text came in that our room was ready. They gave us the room number and a handy map right on the phone. They told us we'd be staying in the 50s, and we'd be guarded by tramp. So after locating one of the 13 handicap spots in the 50s lot, we loaded up the old bobbage cart and headed to our 3rd floor balcony room. The first thing you notice on the outside of the door is the second peephole at wheelchair level. The first thing you notice on the inside of the door is the surprising amount of room there is to maneuver a wheelchair, and we got the king-size bed option. Now you can get it with 2 doubles instead. There is a mini fridge, a dresser, and a TV set, and a table with a couple of chairs. But even with them in there, there's still a surprising amount of room to maneuver down towards the bathroom. And there is a curtain that separates the room, gives you a little bit of privacy in the dressing area, along with a wheelchair accessible sink with nothing blocking it underneath. And all of these light switches, they're at wheelchair accessible levels also. We also opted for the large roll-in bath that also has a handheld shower with an adjustable height holder. And look at these pocket doors. No more having to try to reach around to close the door while you're in a wheelchair. There are also plenty of safety rails located throughout the wet bathroom with a drain in the middle of the floor. The shower stall also includes a large seat. Hey, now let's take a trip outside. See what's going on down towards Classic Hall. On our first trip to Classic Hall, we met some of the local wildlife. A large female turkey. Alright, well, let's go ahead and head inside now. We'll just take the wheelchair through the large automatic doors here. Now, just inside the lobby to the left, you'll find a large video game room. Here's check-in and concierge. Concierge, you can get your theme park tickets, get the tickets you have upgraded, or even get event tickets. Transportation is where you'll find buses to all of the theme parks and to Disney Springs. Inside Everything Pop, you'll find a large Disney store that also includes sundries and snacks. One of my favorite things that they have here too, and something for you to consider while you're in a wheelchair, is Park Package Pickup. You buy something while you're traveling around inside the theme park, there's no reason for you to carry it with you all day. Just tell them you're staying at Pop Century. They'll deliver it to the resort. At Pop Century, this is where you pick it up. Continuing on through the store, you have several dining options available for you for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Some of them healthy, some of them, well, not so much. But let's go ahead and continue on through here. We'll talk about eating later. Let's go ahead and check out the grounds for now. The resort is divided into decades. We're staying in one of the 3 triple wing buildings that make up the 50s. Our stairwells are bowling pins. Our pool is a bowling pin, and our laundromat is a bowling shoe rack. The 60s courtyard is right outside of Classic Hall. Here you'll find the main pool, the Hippy Dippy Pool, where they have games and show movies nightly. Unfortunately for us, the 60s were mostly under renovation during our visit. Now let's roll on down to the 70s. Everything Pop Century has done Disney. I mean, who else would use a Corvette Stingray as a... Oh, hey Goofy! As a prop. I mean, sure, it's chained down and everything, but it's a Corvette Stingray. Now, the 70s are home to some of my favorite icons. I mean, who didn't like the big wheel? Especially if it had that little spring that made the motor sound when the wheels turned really fast. And the power turn handbrake like this one's got. Now, being a former Air Force firefighter, I'm really familiar with these guys. Every Air Force fire station around the world had a foosball table. But I gotta tell you, it's really weird seeing them from this angle at this level and this big. And who wasn't jealous of their friend that had the Mickey Mouse telephone in their bedroom when we were kids? Besides, you seen how much these things are going for on eBay now? And just a side note to my fellow Air Force firefighters, have you ever in your entire life seen a foosball this white before? I mean, really? Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head welcome you into the 80s and 90s areas, where your stairwells are located inside of Rubik's Cubes. The pool area is a gigantic computer screen, and this is your keypad. Roger Rabbit looks on here. I didn't realize that movie came out in '88. And while we're talking about the computer screen pool, all of the pools at Disney are heated, and all of them have handicap lifts. Wow, floppy disk. I'd forgotten all about those things. And a giant Sony Walkman. Cell phone stairways on this building prove that someone finally figured out that the 90s were a decade too. The computer screen celebrates the 1999 launch of Go.com, which now hosts Disney's websites including ABC TV and ESPN. And while Sunday I was tooling around this part, I also spotted a cast member and an Animal Kingdom cast member checking on the turkey. Which reminds me, I'm getting kinda hungry, so let's go back to Classic Hall and check on some food choices. Pop Century is a value resort, so there's no signature restaurant here. But that doesn't mean it's just all hamburgers and hot dogs. I had a jerk chicken there one night. My wife had meatloaf. We both thought it was pretty good. Of course, that doesn't mean they don't have hamburgers and pizza. They have them too. The queue lines are set wide enough for wheelchairs to get through. And of course, you can get Mickey waffles 3 meals a day. Now the drink areas, that's another animal altogether. First off, you got a big tray rack you got to reach across. That makes the distances even further in a wheelchair. The butter and such is kept in bins on the other side. You won't even be able to see what's inside there. Some of the drink dispensers, they're set way back from the edge of the counter. You can see where the handle is for the tea. Can't reach that from a wheelchair. And you better hope there's lids in the bottom containers, because you'll never reach the top one. The toaster's pretty far back too, but you can get it from the side okay. The mug wash stations are easy to get to. They're set pretty far back, but they're hands-free, so you don't need to use a faucet. You definitely won't be coming here for an intimate atmosphere, but if you like meeting people, or just watching people, you'll feel right at home here. Oh, and the turkey? She was just fine. I want to get into the darker side of Pop Century, but first, a little history! The 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s make up the classic years of the Pop Century Resort. And they opened in 2001. But due to a downturn in the economy, the other half of the resort, the legendary years, never opened, and the incomplete buildings sat on the other side of the Generation Gap Bridge. They were there when we stayed there in 2006, and again when Werner Weiss, who took this picture, stayed there in 2009. You can go ahead and check out his other stuff at yesterland.com. Well, those buildings, the empty shells and new additions, eventually became Disney's Art of Animation Resort on the... Okay, now for the boring stuff. Pop Century is a value resort, the low end of the Disney price scale. We went for 5 nights, starting on a Wednesday, and used the Florida resident discount, which is about 25% over the regular pricing. That ran us from $99 to $160 per night for the room. Now, I've often said that Pop Century is a fun resort to be at, but not necessarily a fun resort to stay at. See, Pop Century is a balcony resort. That means that your hallways are on the outside, and folks have a tendency to be a little noisier. And that roll along of luggage that just glides through the airport, well, that makes a terrible racket as it goes along the concrete at 3 o'clock in the morning. Friday night into Saturday morning is another example. The Pro Bowl was in town for the weekend, and All-Star Resorts must have been full, because after we got off the bus for after hours, the Magic Kingdom, just about midnight, there was a large group gathered loudly outside of Building 2. The bands were staying here, and, you know, I love a parade just as much as everybody else, but that's supposed to be at the Magic Kingdom on Saturday morning, not outside the hotel room windows at Friday night. And I didn't say anything because, well, I was in Building 3. One morning before 8 o'clock, somebody discovered how cool a noise they could make by banging something against the metal grate of the balcony. My wife looked outside. We couldn't see anybody. We couldn't tell what floor it was on. Heck, we couldn't even tell what wing of the building the noise was traveling from. And obviously, if you're looking to save money on your resort, you're probably looking to optimize your time in the parks. 7 a.m. seems to be the mobilization time at Pop Century. Toilets begin to flush, doors begin to bang, and the wee ones begin to complain about, you know, being awakened so early. 9 a.m. brings on the buzzsaw sound of housekeeping's vacuum cleaners, and they can be heard knocking on the doors because Disney's done away with Do Not Disturb signs. Okay, so surely you knew this rant was going to come too. It's about the handicap stall up at Classic Hall. There's one of them, Charles, who works at Pop Century. There are 3 other stalls for non-handicapped people like you. I know, because I counted them while I was sitting out there waiting for you to finish up. And, you know, at least put the seat back down when you're done, so I don't realize that you could have used the 8 other urinals that were there too. Thanks. Next time, maybe you should consider using the cast members only one backstage. You know, the one that I can't use. That being said, they are putting Sharps containers in the bathrooms for handy disposal of diabetic syringes now. Okay, now that being said, up at Everything Pop, I met Sabrina. She seemed genuinely interested in my wife and my plans, and what I was doing with the YouTube channel. She was a really nice person, and for every one Charles, there's probably 5 Sabrinas. Thanks for being there, Sabrina. I appreciate you and all the other cast members like you. Even though on check-in we basically just did a drop and go. When we got back to the room, we were surprised to find a little note and some chocolates welcoming us back to the resort. Now, we've stayed at a lot of Disney resorts a lot of times. This is the first time anybody said welcome back. So yeah, the Pop Century Resort is kind of fun. We met one couple who was in the middle of their 30-day stay, and they've been doing it for 16 years. The resort's kind of fun. The grounds are kind of fun. And really, who doesn't like a big wheel? Oh yeah, and Emmy got a good report card from the Canine Country Club.
Jay's ringing the Great Turkey Saga. Guess who's back? Oh, she's making herself comfortable, Gene.